It was during my college years that I first met Emily. A new family had moved into our neighborhood, and they consisted of two sisters and two brothers. The elder brother, Andrew, was in his late 20s, while his younger brother, Jake, was around my age. Emily was the eldest sister, just a couple of years older than Jake. She was poised, graceful, and had an air of quiet strength that drew people in. At first, I didn't pay much attention to her, but as time passed and I spent more time at their house, things changed. Jake and I bonded quickly over cricket. He would often invite me over to their home to study or to play games, and that's how I started noticing Emily more. She was always busy taking care of the household, helping her younger sister, Anna, with studies and managing other responsibilities. Despite the hustle and bustle of her daily life, she always had a soft smile on her face that I found mesmerizing. I admired her from a distance, not daring to cross the line since she was a few years older. My visits to their house became more frequent under the pretext of studying or playing with Jake. Emily was very accommodating, always making sure I felt welcome. She would offer snacks and tea, join in on conversations, and laugh along with us. The more time I spent there, the more I started to fall for her. She had an intelligence and grace that was rare, and I found myself captivated by her presence. I soon realized my feelings were turning into something deeper. One evening, Jake and I were playing cricket in their backyard, and Emily came out to call us for dinner. She looked at me with a teasing smile. "You guys have been playing for hours. Don't you ever get tired?" I shrugged with a smile. "Not when we're having fun. Besides, I think I'm getting better." Emily laughed softly, the sound melodic and light. "Well, take a break. You both need to eat," she said, turning to walk back inside. I couldn't help but watch her as she left, my heart beating faster. As days went by, I started finding excuses to talk to her alone. Sometimes we would end up on the terrace in the evening, watching the sunset. Other times, we would sit in their living room, discussing everything from movies to books. It felt natural, comfortable, and yet there was an underlying tension that neither of us acknowledged. One afternoon, Jake had gone out to run some errands, leaving just me and Emily at home. I found her sitting in the living room, flipping through a magazine. I hesitated before walking over and sitting down beside her. She glanced up, a small smile playing on her lips. "Do you have a favorite book?" I asked, trying to spark a conversation. Emily looked thoughtful for a moment. There are so many, but I guess if I had to choose, it would be Pride and Prejudice. It's timeless, don't you think?" I nodded, though I was hardly listening to her words. I was more focused on how her eyes lit up when she talked about something she loved. "You know," I said, leaning slightly closer, "I think you're right. Some things really are timeless." She looked at me, her expression shifting to something more serious, and for a moment I thought I had crossed a line. But then she laughed softly, shaking her head. "You're such a flirt," she teased, playfully nudging my shoulder. I grinned, feeling my heart skip a beat. "Only for you," I replied quietly, my eyes never leaving hers. Emily blushed and quickly looked away, but I noticed a hint of a smile on her lips. We sat in silence for a few moments, the tension between us growing thicker. I wanted to say more, to confess everything that had been building inside me, but I was afraid of what might happen if I did. She was older, more experienced, and I wasn't sure if she felt the same way. Weeks went by, and our interactions became more frequent. Whenever Jake was out, Emily and I would steal quiet moments together, sometimes on the terrace, sometimes in the kitchen while she cooked. One evening, I found her alone on the terrace, gazing out at the stars. I approached her, my heart pounding in my chest. "You always come up here when you want to think," I said softly, standing beside her. She glanced at me, her eyes softening. "It's peaceful up here. It helps clear my mind," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Without thinking, I reached out and gently took her hand. She stiffened for a moment but didn't pull away. The warmth of her hand against mine sent a thrill through me. "Emily," I began, my voice trembling slightly, I need to tell you something." She turned to look at me, her eyes wide and searching. "What is it?" she asked, though I could sense she already knew what I was going to say. I know that I have feelings for you," I confessed, squeezing her hand. "I know I'm younger and it might not make sense, but I can't help how I feel." For a moment, she was silent, and my heart sank. Then, to my surprise, she stepped closer, her face inches from mine. "You shouldn't feel this way," she said softly, though her voice lacked conviction. "But I do," I replied, my eyes locking onto hers. "And I think maybe you feel the same way." A conflicted look crossed her face, and she bit her lip. "You're making this difficult," she murmured. "You're still in college. You have your whole life ahead of you. What we have, it can't go anywhere." "Why not?" I pressed, stepping even closer. "Why can't we decide what we want?" She shook her head, looking away. "Because life isn't that simple. People have expectations from me. My family depends on me." I reached out, gently cupping her face with my hand, and turned her to look at me. "What about what you want?" I asked softly. Her eyes filled with tears, and she closed them, leaning into my touch. "I don't know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I don't know what I want anymore." Without thinking, I leaned in and kissed her gently. For a moment, she froze, and I feared I had made a mistake. But then, she melted into the kiss, her arms wrapping around my neck, pulling me closer. The world around us disappeared, and it was just us, standing there in the quiet darkness, sharing a moment that we both knew might never happen again. When we finally pulled away, she rested her forehead against mine, breathing heavily. "This is wrong," she said shakily, though her grip on me didn't loosen. "But it feels so right." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. "I know," I whispered, "but maybe it doesn't have to be wrong." We stood there, holding each other, lost in the whirlwind of emotions. The tension, the desire, and the fear of what lay ahead mixed together, creating a storm that neither of us knew how to navigate. From that night on, things between us changed. Whenever we met, there was a subtle yet undeniable intimacy. She would catch my hand as I walked past, her fingers lingering just a moment too long. I would find excuses to be alone with her, craving the touch of her hand or the sound of her laughter. Every interaction was laced with a mix of yearning and fear, as though we were both teetering on the edge of something forbidden yet incredibly alluring. One day, we were alone in the living room, the air thick with unspoken words. Emily stood by the window, gazing out at the street, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. I approached her, my heart pounding. "Emily," I said quietly, reaching out to touch her arm. She turned to look at me, her eyes filled with a mix of longing and sadness. "This has to stop," she said, her voice breaking. "We can't keep doing this." I felt a lump form in my throat. "But why?" I asked, desperation seeping into my voice. "I care about you, and I know you care about me too." She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Because it will only lead to pain," she whispered. "You're still young, and I have responsibilities. My family, their expectations. I can't just follow my heart." I stepped closer, cupping her face in my hands. "But what about us? What we have, it's really," I insisted, my voice trembling. She shook her head, tears flowing freely now. "It doesn't matter," she choked out. "Life isn't just about what we want. Sometimes we have to let go of things, even if it breaks us." We stood there, holding each other, both of us crying silently. I kissed her forehead, her tears wetting my lips. "I love you," I murmured against her skin, feeling my heart shatter. "And I love you," she replied, her voice barely audible. "But it's not enough." With that, she pulled away, turning her back to me. I stood there, helpless and broken, watching as she walked away, leaving me standing alone in the quiet room. That was the last time we ever spoke about our feelings. I continued to visit their house, but things were different. We went back to casual conversations, hiding our emotions behind smiles and laughter. The spark between us remained, but it was buried beneath layers of duty and societal norms. In the years that followed, I graduated and moved on with my life. Emily eventually married someone her family approved of, and I heard she settled into a comfortable life. I often think back to those moments we shared, the stolen kisses and whispered confessions. Sometimes, love isn't enough to change the course of life, and all that's left are memories of what could have been. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think some love stories are meant to stay as memories? Don't forget to hit the bell icon for future updates. See you next time.